Hello, everybody. This is Arwen Lewis, and you're listening to The Arwen Lewis Show. My show is under the Jeremiah Show platform, and I feature established, upcoming, and independent and signed musical artists who've had vast careers in the music business and who are just getting started. Today, I have a music icon, Don Stevenson. He's a very established musician, currently working on some solo projects, and most of you may know him from the San Francisco cult icons Moby Grape. I'm going to read you a beautiful biography about Don, and then we're going to get started with the interview. Hi, Don. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, nice to be here with you, Aaron.
It's great to have you here. So I'm just going to read this biography, and then we'll get started. Uh,
Okay.
we're featuring.
It took me a long time to write that, by the way.
Oh, well, it's very impressive. So we're going to be featuring songs, so everybody knows, from Don's recent album called Limited Engagement Volume 1 today. And we're going to feature his track, Thank You, Lord, in its entirety at the end of the show. So stick around and hear that at the end of the show. And so about Don Stevenson. After years of playing a circuit of R&B clubs and events and speakeasies in the Pacific Northwest, Don Stevenson trekked down to the Bay Area in the summer of 1965. He'd recently joined the Frantics. The following summer, he co-founded the iconic San Francisco band Moby Grape. Playing ballrooms like the Fillmore and Avalon, the Grape instantly became the darlings of the Bay Area and the object of a massive bidding war. In the early weeks of 67, the fivesome shuffled between San Francisco and Los Angeles, with record company executives from Columbia, Atlantic, and Elektra elbowing each other out of the way with contracts and pens in hand. Signing with Columbia, Moby Grape recorded their debut in a handful of sessions in the spring of 1967. The album came out a few days after Pepper, and a couple of weeks later, the Grape played a killer set at the Monterey Pop Festival. As a songwriting, singing drummer, Don Stevenson was a trailblazer, opening the door for the likes of Levon Helm and Don Henley. Moby Grape's self-titled LP isn't just one of the best debuts in history, it's one of the best albums ever cut. It's now over half a century in those heady days, and today, Stevenson is putting out his third solo album, Limited Engagement Volume 1, produced by Jamie Collins on Sound Sweet Music and featuring such talent as Tim Bavaconti from the Burton Cummings Band, Dane Clark of John Mellencamp, and Dale Ackerman of the Doobie Brothers. And the album includes 11 stellar tracks, tapping into all the genres Moby Grape explored so many years ago. With another dozen tracks in the can, Stevenson's next album is right around the corner, and he's looking into the past, present, and future all at once. At 82, Don Stevenson has every bit as much energy as those two generations younger, and you'll witness this when his band hits the stage at Massey Hall. Having shared the bill with the likes of Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Steve Miller, The Byrds, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Sly Stone, and a host of others, Don Stevenson is no stranger to event concerts like Chest Fever. Prepare to be bowled over by a seasoned icon. Thank you for coming on the show, Don. This is so amazing.
Thank you, Aaron. And it's just it's nice to be able to speak with you. And as you know very well, that your father and I are dear friends, and both originators of the band Moby Grape. And he's seriously one of my favorite songwriters in the world. So, and you're off to a great start in your career, and I'm impressed by your ambition and by your motivation, and I think you're on your way to great things.
Thank you so much, Don. And I mean, I know that I'll say the same for you as you being one of my favorite songwriters. And also, my dad will say the same too. And he always feels so lucky to have been in that band and creating such magic with all of you for sure. And I have to say, I think it's just beautiful how you continue to evolve as a musician and an artist. And I'd love to spend a good amount of time talking about your new projects and the show you have coming up at the historic Massey Hall. But I thought we could start by talking about the beginning of your musical journey and how you evolved into the artist you are today. So, when did you start to play and what inspired you to start playing music?
Well, it's not an unusual story. I think I just wanted to belong, and when I first became um, a drummer, I was just asked by a friend of mine, that Ed Kleffner, that he was had a band, and he had just was him and Pat Fay, a guitar player and a keyboard player. And this is like we're 12 years old or something, right? I think we're about 12.
Mhm.
And he said, I'm playing at St. Benedict's, I'm playing at I got a little spot at the dance for my band. He said, a drummer? And I said, I don't know why. I said, well, I'm a drummer. And he said, well, we're going to have some rehearsal. And could you get together? So I went to my friend's house, Pete Chacos, actually is a drummer. And I borrowed his gold sparkly Slingerland set of drums and took them home and practiced for a couple of days. And then Ed and Pat Fahey came down to my house on Interlake, and we practiced at 12 or 13 years old, and we learned a couple of probably three or four songs, that were teen beat, like Dwayne Eddy, and just some real kind of simple songs, instrumentals, and we got to play at St. Benedict's. Honestly, it was funny too, because we were like the last thing to happen at that dance, and the priest at St. Benedict came up and unplugged us after a couple of songs.
That whole story is so rock and roll. I love it. Did you end up having like a formal musical education or did you end up being self-taught?
I think from a formal music education is, unfortunately, I didn't take advantage of the possibility of taking piano lessons, which my dear sainted mother wanted me to do, and I tried it, but it was just too, I don't know, it's just too consuming and too complicated, and I wasn't interested. It was about the same age too, but I would rather go play sports and go run around and hang out and do stuff, So I passed on formal education, but not too long after that. By the time I got into junior high and a little bit older, I think my passion became music. I
Mhm.
mean, I ate, dreamt, slept, thought about. I just didn't think or want anything else in my life other than music. That's all I was interested in. Of course, except for girls, but other than that,
They go
that
hand
was
in hand.
they do, and that's another good motivation. I was too small to play football or anything. Although for my school, I played boys club, but the only other way I could think of is to really get some attention from some of the girls in our school, was just to be some sort of have a differentiator, and that was another motivator for music. But pretty soon music took over, and that the other stuff just kind of happened a little bit, but wasn't my motivation anymore.
And did you start singing naturally too? Why did you start singing and when did you start playing guitar?
Well, I started singing because nobody else in the band sang, and at the time when I was in the Continentals, which was my high school band,
Mhm.
and I think it's really interesting in the Pacific Northwest. Um, there was nothing happening every weekend that didn't have a band. I mean, it was kind of crazy. They used to have things called sock offs, and high schools would have a Friday night dance and a Saturday night dance all around the city. 20, 30 high schools would all have dances at the same time. And all the dances were live music, were bands. And so, you know, most of the bands in Seattle, and there were some really great ones. We all played instrumentals. We take it kind of it was like a little handoff from the big band era, which was instrumental pretty much,
Mhm.
into combos. And then there were people like Bill Doggett and some of these combos that we played some charts, but we also played a lot of instrumentals that were really funky and fun. And so we learned instrumentals and learned some of the classics and charts and all of that. But there came a time when all of a sudden we were going to play Splish Splash or Bobby Darin songs or doing some of that. We needed somebody to sing, and I could sing.
Mhm.
So I became the singing drummer from Seattle.
Nice.
Yeah,
Opening the doors for Levon Helm and Don Henley.
you're, you're welcome.
Yeah. You're welcome, Don and
Yeah,
Levon.
don't, yeah, you guys.
Don Henley, not you. Don says,
Yeah,
hey, you're welcome.
yeah.
Anyway, and what about writing songs? Did you, is that when you started with in the Frantics with Jerry, or how did that start?
I actually wrote a teenage love song when I was like 14.
Okay.
It was really stupid, so that was the first, that was my first song. I can't believe how stupid it was, but it was my first. But I delved into it. I tried to write a song and then taught the band, and it didn't go very far. So the band kind of like rejected it. I had to go back to the drawing boards. But yeah, when after high school, and by the way, the Continentals became funky enough, my high school band, to be playing a lot of gigs at the Birdland, and you know, and then even after high school, the band kept going to Continentals, and we would play down at the Chitlin Circuit down at the Black and Tan, where we would play with Etta James and Etta Jones and Big Mama Thornton and dancers with snakes around their neck and twirling fire
Yeah.
from from there, from it was crazy. It was
What
like
an
so much
era.
fun. Oh yeah. So we would play 6 nights a week up at the Roll-In Tavern and then pack up our stuff and head down, and I'd pack up my drums and then go pick up Mike Mandel, who is a B3 Hammond organ player, and Lee Parker, and we go down to the Black and Tan. And so I would play from, I our gig started at 8 or 9, and we played till 1, and I'd pack up and go down and play from 4 or from 3 till 5:30 or 6. So that was for maybe a half a year, and that's when we got to play, Jimmy McGriff and George Benson, and just a lot of really wonderfully talented people came through that Chitlin circuit, and so it was like just the greatest education you could ever imagine. And after I was playing at the Roll-In, when that gig kind of ended, that's when I was playing in the Playboys, and that's when the Frantics asked me to come and play with them, and that's Jerry played with the Frantics. So I went over to Tacoma and played at the Top Hat. It was run by a bunch of gangsters.
Cool.
Carla, it was cool. Carla Coley's, there's some good stuff there. So anyway, yeah, I went over and that's when I met Jerry and played with the Frantics.
Nice. Well, I want to go back to talking about that and Moby Grape, of course, too, but I thought we could touch a little bit on your new record,
Oh,
Limited Engagement Volume 1. So this is your third solo record, right? And you embarked on a solo career just about 10 years ago. So first you
right.
released Buskin' in the Subway and then King of Fools, right? And
Yep.
now your new record. So what inspired you to switch gears and just evolve this way as a solo artist and a front person?
Well, Gordon Stevens was actually who was the violin player, viola player on 20 Granite Creek with Moby Grape, and had a recording studio in San Jose. Great bass player, great musician,
Mhm.
great Zen dude.
I
Really
love
wonderful man.
Gordon. Such a
Oh,
great
isn't
man.
Gordon? Oh, so I sent down a little cassette I'd done in the basement with a friend of mine with some songs I'd written, and this was probably 11 years ago. And
Okay.
he said, and that I had no real, um, idea of recording an album, but I just sent him down and said, here's some songs that just, if you know anybody that like them, or if there is any, and he called back. He said, get down here, man. Get your ass down here. I got a band like in my studio that is like studio musicians that are great. He said, these songs are great. I go, what? So we all need somebody that believes in us once in a while, and it doesn't matter if you're just beginning, or if you're just beginning again at a senior age, or if you're in the middle of something. It's just when somebody believes in you, it picks you up and gives you the, you know, kind of, oh, okay, I'll do that, man. So I went down, and Jerry, in his generosity, flew down, and we spent a week together and did King of the Fools, and so that was, and then I woke up at about 70 years old and realized that I was full of music and still am. And because just like you, we write our truth, whatever the truth is at the time that we're dealing with our lives, with the joy and with the sorrow, with the pain and with the suffering and with all the things that we deal with. In our art, we try to take those things and put them into our art. And interestingly enough, like I said, I woke up at 70 and I was just like up to here with ideas and with music. And I went and took guitar lessons from a guitar player and vocal lessons from an opera singer, and just went at it after, it's just a late bloomer.
But what a cool experience to have. And also, I mean, you already know how to sing, you know about rhythm, so I'm sure like the drums kind of helps you like with your guitar playing a little bit. But having had such a strong lifetime of experience with this like foundation and like influential and completely exceptional to say the least rock music, right? Like going into learning from an opera singer and learning about guitar, like it must have been really fun, for your brain, probably, right? Like just like a fun thing to focus on and a very
Yeah.
beautiful, inspirational experience.
Well, it was really fun, and what was kind of cool is I went down. One of the motivations was go down to California and visit my wife's parents at the time, and they were big band people, and so I went to a jazz guitar player and learned how to play some of these standards, like "I Can't Give You Anything But Love," and just I mean all of these songs, "Day by Day," just those songs. So I went down. I was able to sing all those songs for her parents, and
Oh,
they loved it, and we had a great time. To this day, I just went down and saw her mom, who's getting very old, but we just sang songs, and she doesn't have the greatest memory, but when we start to sing all these old songs, just like you've heard, she starts to sing along. So that was part of it, and so being able to, kind of like learn a whole fresh new set of chords and a new way of identifying musical, notes and chords. It kind of opened up, an avenue to be able to find something to hang the expression of the words that I had in my head and that I was thinking about experiences I had. So it was really, it was a blessing to be able to go through that.
well, now you have that. And now you get to create, and you just released your third, and then we're going to be hearing a fourth album coming up pretty soon too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's right.
and so for instance, just to take one song from the limited engagement volume one, Thank You, Lord, which is the featured track. It's like a Southern gospel vibe with a beautiful choir and the slide guitar and the violin. Why, why is that the featured track today? And why the gospel influence for that production?
Well, I became a Christian in 1972. And so I know that I've kind of like left God a number of times, but I don't think he ever really left me, right? So I was really grateful for that. And that's what the song's about. It's just about my gratitude for been able to be stable and be planted by that river, and that the river flows and gives me life. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful that I have that spirit inside me. It's like those guys who come off from the football field and say, "I want to thank God and all and everybody I get to play with, and
And my
my
mom.
and my mom." Yeah. And so that's really what I was doing. I was just thanking the Lord, for all the patience He has with me.
It's really funny you brought up that point too about like how you said he never really left you. There's this really beautiful quote that my aunt Judy, my dad's sister, she loved it, and it was like, God, where were you when I needed you the most? I couldn't see your footprints next to me on the sand. And it says like, you couldn't see my footprints because I was carrying you. So those
Yeah,
were my footprints. They weren't yours. I love that thought. And so
that's a great thought. That's a great thought.
well, anyway, we're just going to run out to break really quickly here on that note. And everybody, if you're just tuning in, my very, very special guest is Mr. Don Stevenson, a songwriter, guitarist, drummer, singing drummer from the rock and roll cult heroes Moby Grape. from the band Frantics and many more great, awesome rock and roll projects. And we're just getting started on the interview, and we're going to take you out to break with his song, City of God, from his recent album, Limited Engagement Volume 1, and bring you back in with Chicken Steak. So please enjoy, and we'll be right back. Cool.
All right.
So yeah, I figured we could finish up talking about the album, or do you want to move on? Totally up to you. I was going to ask you like if you wrote all the songs in your songwriting process, if you want to talk about that.
Wherever you'd like to go is fine with me. It doesn't matter to me, Erwin.
Okay.
So it's whatever you're comfortable with,
Why don't I?
So you guys, well, you're playing chicken steak and